So hello and welcome to this session. It's really good to have you joining us today. My name is Jos Burton. I'm a training consultant and I specialise in sales, management and leadership development programmes. And this webinar has been brought to you by the wonderful people at Raise the Bar. Raise the Bar are very well known now as the UK's leading speaker agency with over 350 speakers on their books who range in all sorts of different subject matters. And also, Raise the Bar offer a range of learning and development programs that help to give their clients the cutting edge. So what I want to do is just give you a bit of a background. I've been a training consultant for nearly 7 years now, and before that, I worked as a senior training manager with Hayes, with the recruitment people. And it was there that I developed this version of the sales cycle to help recruiters have a more professional approach to their selling. So I want to share that with you today. Before we go through the sales cycle, if you've got a pencil and paper ready, that would be really useful. And you can copy down this cycle and fill in the little bits of detail as we go through that. That would be really helpful. Pencil and paper is ready. Also, towards the end of the session, which is about half an hour, there'll be a live Q&A session for about 15 minutes afterwards. If you've got any questions during the session that you want to bring up, please use the icon on the left-hand side of your screen. Questions will be logged there, and we'll deal with those at the end of the session. Okay, so I want to show you my version of the sales cycle. If you want to copy this down, here's one I prepared earlier, as they say in the best trainer fashion. This is, if you can sketch this down now, please, for me. There should be 6 cycles on the outside, so 1 at the top, 2 down the side, 1 at the bottom, 2 on the other side here, 1 in the middle, so that gives you 7 in total. And if you can join them together with clockwise arrows, that would be really helpful. Okay, so while you're sketching that out, I'll tell you why it came about this way. The thing with the sales process is, some people come into sales thinking that sales is going to be a linear process. If I do steps A, B, C, and D, then I will get a sale. The reality is that sales is a much more cyclical process. I want to be able to show you that. But by going around the cycle, often more than once, you can get closer to getting to the end result that you're looking for. So, have you got that cycle set down? Yes, good, excellent. So what I want to do is take you through each of these steps, illustrate the points for you, and if you have questions, like we said, make a note of those as we go along. So the sales cycle, I believe, this version should be able to be adapted to either telephone conversations with your clients or face-to-face meetings. If you go out and meet with your clients, I think this process can work just as well for that. So what should you do, if we're looking at an example, what should you do before even picking up the phone or going out to meet with your clients? Step number 1. Before you pick up the phone, before you have a conversation, it's really important that you do your prep. So can you write that down in the top circle for me, please? Preparation is vital. There are 2 main areas to your preparation that I think are important. The first is getting some research about your prospect or your client you're going to speak to. And the second part of this is making sure you've done a bit of planning to make sure you get the most out of the call. Okay, so what research should you do? I believe there are 3 key areas for your research. Number 1, the person that you're going to be calling. We need to find out a little bit about this contact. We really should know their name. We should know a little bit about their background, what sort of things they have been doing. We should even be able to find out a little bit about what's important to them. What do they value? What does this person care about? Now, you can do a bit of digging around on the internet. You can go on Google searches. Can I recommend that you use LinkedIn? It's a very powerful tool now and a great way for you to find out commercially what this person does and what they're interested in. It might give you a chance to find out a bit about their background. And more importantly, it might give you the opportunity to find out, I might know somebody who knows this person. And then if you've got that connection, it's going to make that call a little bit warmer and a little bit easier to get that first conversation going. So we need to do a bit of background on the person first. The second thing to remember is research on the company. Okay, so this is the organisation that the person works for, your prospect client. We need to find out a little bit about what they do, what's important to them, what are their values, A little bit of search on the internet should help you to do that. They will have a statement, probably about a mission statement, their aims and objectives, their core values, what they care about. And you might be able to do a bit of digging around and look at their news feed. What have they been up to lately? What projects have they done? What tasks have they worked on? Things like who are their customers, who are their suppliers. You might be able to find out who are their competitors. So the more of that information you can find out, that's going to give you a bit more of a good reason for calling them, which we'll come back to in a minute. Okay, so we've got the person, the company. Have you got room on your paper? One more. So their sector. What do they specialise in? Are they retail? Are they business to business? In which case, what area? Are they healthcare specialists? Or what is it? One of my clients that I work with is oil and gas specialist. Well, you know what's been happening in the oil and gas sector lately. Oil prices have dropped. The big operators are cutting back on their spend, so that's affecting some of their projects. And that's a concern for some of the clients. So what impact is that having on the company? Therefore, what issues is that creating for this person that I want to speak to? And all of this research is helping me to understand what might be important to the client, and also then gives me a way into having a conversation with them. Okay, so they're the three areas of research for you to do. We also need to know our planning for the call, and your planning should be around, if I've identified things here that are important to the customer, what products or services do I offer that might be relevant to them? So I should be thinking about looking through my catalogue, understanding what products I've got that are relevant, and how I might link a particular offer that I've got to something that the customer values. I also should be focused on having some objectives. What do I want to get out of this conversation? Now, can I suggest that when you're setting yourself objectives, do it at 3 levels, right? So the first should be the best possible outcome. So your BPO. What is the best possible outcome from this conversation with the client? And focus on that in your mind. So the best possible outcome could be, I know that they're doing something at the moment which is interesting, and I've got a solution that could help them. Therefore, the best possible outcome would probably be a sale. Let me get that order on the phone today. That might not happen in the real world, so I want a more realistic objective. I might get an initial conversation, find out some information, and hopefully maybe able to get a meeting with the client. And then what's my minimum? Well, the client's very busy, they've got things on the plate at the moment, they don't want to speak to me, stuff's going off. Okay, so as a minimum, I want to arrange something with the client to follow on from what the activity we've done today. So it may be a call back later, it may be sending some further information, it may be some call to action for the customer. So in your head, fix yourself 3 different objectives, go into the call aiming high, and then depending on the feedback you get, the conversation, how it goes, you might come down a little bit, and then come down a little bit more if necessary. But aim high, set yourself those expectations, and try to get as much out of that conversation as you possibly can. Okay, another part of the preparation is to make sure that from my research and my planning, I've got a good reason for calling the customer. Okay, so what I want to do is link that to the next step around the circle. Have you got that as your prep there? Good, okay. Number 2, we've done our preparation, we've had a think about why we want to call the customer. At some point, you've got to pick up the phone and introduce yourself. So in number 2 here, can you write intro? Introduction. Typically, what does an introduction contain? It's usually your name, the company that you're calling from, and the reason for your conversation. So very simply, it might be something like, good morning or afternoon, my name's Jos Burton, I'm calling from Raise the Bar, and the reason I'm calling today is. That's the introduction, that's all there is to it. The introduction will be linked back to something I found in my research. So for example, I found out it's a client, a company that I'm interested in, is recently going through a big restructure, and that's bringing a lot of change into the organisation, and that's having an impact on their business from what I've done from my research. So my reason for calling may be, I would go through, good morning, my name is Jos Burton, I'm calling from Raise the Bar, and the reason for my call is I understand that you've been going through a big restructuring programme at the moment, I'd like to find out what impact that's had on your training and development. So I've told them just in that short introduction who I am, where I'm calling from, and the reason for my call, and I've tried to link it to something that will be a hook for the customer. Oh yeah, we've got all that restructuring at the moment, we're having terrible time getting all the training done because of all the restructuring, and that's having an impact on business. Right, how long does that introduction take? This box here probably only takes 20 or 30 seconds. And what happens in that first 20 or 30 seconds? Well, you think back to when you logged on, which was about 10 minutes ago, you were making a decision within those first few seconds as, am I going to listen to this chap talking, or is it a waste of my time? And what do you base that decision on? Well, there's a couple of things. There's the words that I say. Does he sound like he knows what he's talking about? Does he sound credible? And then there's the way that I say it. So my body language, my presentation, what you see around you, the visuals, and all of that puts a message across. And very quickly, you're making a decision. Is this person going, am I going to give this person the time of day? Your clients are doing that, your potential customers are on the phone during that introduction. They're making a decision. Shall I give this person the time of day, or shall I just put the phone down? They can't see you over the phone, so they're basing this on the words that you say and the tone of voice. Now, there's a lot of research about this, but generally speaking, there tends to be a pattern whereby people are making more of that decision, not just on the words, but on the tone of voice and the delivery of them. So we have to work at that. And it's important that you practice the intro. It's probably the only part of the call you can actually control. After you've gone through the intro and get into the next bit, it can go in lots of different directions. So practice your introduction, make sure it sounds professional, make sure the tone and the delivery of it work well for you. Okay, this is where the introduction is where you make your first impression. So can you put first impression there, just as a reminder, and it's to do with tone of voice and the words that you use. The introduction should include your name, the company you're calling from, and your reason for calling. Now, the real clever bit here is linking the reason you call to the next part of the process. Okay? So, can I ask you to write in box 3 here, what do we do after giving the reason for calling to get the customer talking to us? The important skill for a trainer, for a salesperson, whatever you're selling, is to get this step right. To get people talking to you, you've got to be able to ask questions. What sort of questions will get somebody talking to you in a fairly relaxed or fairly informal way? Okay, the questions we must use here are open. What's our definition of an open question? An open question typically is one that can't give a yes or no answer. So in your first part of the conversation, try to avoid asking questions like, is this a good time for you to speak? If you've never spoken to this person before and they don't know who you are, if you say, is this a good time for you to speak? 9 times out of 10, they're just going to go, no, I'm busy. So that's put you onto a back foot straight away. If you ask a question that's linked to your research that you did earlier, and it's an intelligent question, one that requires a bit of research and shows that you've done some thinking about it, they're more likely to give you a reasonable answer. And what we're looking for is just to get the conversation started. So by asking a question linked to, they've been going through a lot of change recently, and I might ask a question like, how has the organisation been managing that change, and what impact has it had on your people? And the client might say, oh, it's had a bit of an impact on productivity, yes, understandably. Okay, so what impact has that had? What impact has that had on your productivity? Oh, well, we're down by 10 or 15%. Okay, so how's that affected the services that we provide? And I just want to get the conversation going. So I'm asking open questions. So it would be things like what, it would be how, it might even be why, who, what, why, where, and when. I think Kipling called them his 6 honest serving men. So if you can get one of those at the start of your question is more likely to be an open one, and it gives the customer the opportunity to give you a more detailed and fuller answer. The downside to open questions, we need to get this out and be truthful about this, is that open questions can lead to very digressive answers. The customer might wander off its tangent, which is not where you're interested in going with a particular call, although you should always have half an ear open to the digressions, because there might be something down there that's an unspecified need. So let's come back to that in a minute. We ask the open questions to get them talking to us, but they may go off a bit of a tangent, so we then pull them back into the specific areas we want to discuss. So then we need to use probing questions. Okay, have you got probing down there? So you've got open questions to get them started, and then probing questions. Now, can I suggest for your probing questions, there is a simple way to remember this. It's TED, like T-E-D. You got TED? So the T is for tell me about. If the customer's gone off a bit of a tangent with performance, okay, so tell me what aspect specifically it's affected of your performance. The E is for explain. So this is where we can say to them something like, explain the output of that, or explain the impact of that. And the last one is describe. Describe the impact on your team, describe the effect, describe the response you've had from your customers. The thing with these is they tend to focus quite interrogatively on specific areas of information. If you do too many of these, the client will literally feel like you're interrogating them, and they'll start to feel uncomfortable and just call to an end. So we need to get a balance between the right number of open questions first, to get them talking and just feeling like, okay, I can share this with you, and then probing questions to get at the specific bits of information that we're interested in. Okay, this bit takes a bit of practice, getting the open questions right and linking them together. It's worth spending a bit of time on this, and actually, when you've done your research, found your reason for calling, then it's a good idea to jot down a handful of open questions that will help you unpick where that opportunity might be for you to help. Okay, the reason we are going to all this trouble is we're looking to identify if the customer has any needs. So can you put needs in here, please? Between the questions and the next phase, we want to uncover if the customer has any needs. There are two different types of needs, actually. There are specified needs. I might ring up a client to speak to them and they say, actually, yes, we've been struggling with our managers, they're not coping with the change that's happening at the moment, and we know that we need some kind of management program to help them deal with the change. Fine. That would be a specific need. But they might also say, a lot of our staff are feeling disaffected at the moment, they've become disengaged, our feedback's been poor, and we can't see what's happening. That would be an unspecified need, and I could talk to them about that. Well, what things have we tried or could be tried that would help get people motivated again and get them back on board? Have we tried any training or development around change management so that the people that are going through the change feel supported? It's important that you spend time questioning and actually work out, is there a need here to which I can help that client? If there's no need, then don't try and sell them something that they don't need. All you'll do is make yourself sound like Mr. Pushy Salesman, and you don't want to do that. What we do want to sound like is we are interested in what's affecting the customer, and we may have something that is relevant to that need, okay? So if you spent a bit of time doing the questioning, you've uncovered something that you think, I can help with that, then where a lot of salespeople fall down is as soon as they hear a whiff of something that they think, I can do that, I can help with that, they then go on to selling something straight away, and they miss out a vital step. So please make sure you do this if you can. After step number 3, number 4, how do we show the customer that A, we've been listening, and B, that we've understood? Okay, what you've got to do here is make sure you confirm their requirements. Take a few minutes and go back through with them the needs that they've been explaining to you, say, so Mr. Customer, it sounds like to me this has been an issue for all this change. It's affected the way your productivity is happening, and your managers are struggling to cope with that. And we've got a lot of people that are a bit disaffected. Have I got that right? What you're doing here is showing the customer that you've been listening and that you understand what they're looking for. And at this point, I want to demonstrate that I understand and I am concerned, I'm affected. I will demonstrate empathy for their situation. I can understand how those people would feel with that amount of restructuring going off. It's going to have an impact on their productivity. But what I'm doing here is I'm also looking for an invitation to sell. I'm looking for a permission to sell. If I get to the confirmation stage here and the customer goes, no, that's not what I meant at all, then you've got to go back a step and say, oh, right, okay, so what is it that I've missed? Just talk me through that bit again. If you get to this stage and say, so this is my understanding of the situation, they go, yes, that's exactly what it's like. By them saying yes, they're giving you permission to sell. So you can now move on to the next box, 5. And can you write sell in here, please, in big letters with an exclamation mark after a little star. Your job is to sell. Now, if any of you are a little bit uncomfortable with selling, what are you doing on this webinar? But more importantly, some people are selling without realizing they're selling. And actually, what this is about, there's nothing complicated about this, is if you uncover a need, then match a solution back to the need. That's what selling is. We've got halfway around the sales cycle and not sold anything, but we've uncovered a need. And if we do that in the way that shows we're genuinely interested, then the selling is starting to happen here. Because in a way, the customer's thinking, I'll buy from you because you really are interested in my concerns and you're showing a genuine understanding for my concerns. So when I come to talk about a solution, they are going to be more receptive because I've clarified and confirmed with them my understanding is correct, and I'm telling them about a solution that ticks some of their boxes. Okay? Now, if it was that easy, everybody would do it, and that would be the end of the story. It's not, I'll be honest. And we should be expecting, at some point in any conversation, any sales conversation at all, we should be expecting there to be objections. Can you put the word objections into here for me? Okay, so objections, they're coming at number 6, but there's a reason for that. The reason is this: you can't sell to an objection. You can only sell to a need. And this is where salespeople sometimes fall down. They hear the objection, oh, that's too expensive for me. And they go, oh, it's not really that expensive. But if you take this and take that and consider this and consider. So then they're selling to the objection. You can only sell to a need. So if the objection comes up, that's far too expensive, just for an example, then we need to go around again and ask a question related to the objection. So if it was cost, our question might be, so what were you expecting? What budget had you got in mind for this project? What financial impact is this particular problem having for you? What's it costing you at the moment? What have you paid in the past for similar solutions? So what is their expectations? What I'm looking for ultimately, if cost is an objection, what are they comparing it to? What are they comparing my solution to others? And are they comparing like for like? If they're not, we need to be able to highlight what the difference is. If they are, we need to work out, okay, so you're used to paying X for a solution, and I've just explained mine was Y. What if I was to repackage my solution for you and put it in such a way that it better meets your needs and your budget? Would that be something you'd be interested in? So I go back round here. Here's the thing. How many times do you think you have to go round this bottom cycle? Well, there's quite a lot of research out there, as you can imagine in sales. Typically, before you get an order, you should expect to go at least 5 or 6 times, probably as many as 10. It's unusual to get a sale on the first telephone conversation the customer just buys. What does this actually mean to us? It means that typically in most sales arenas that I've worked in, there are only a handful of objections that come up 90% of the time. It's very unusual to have one that's not one of the main 5 or 6. It's usually either to do with cost, time, that they already know a supplier and have a relationship with a supplier, something to do with the quality of it or the fit of it. So if we know what the key objections that may come up in our area and what's important to this customer, then we can prepare better for that call. You should expect there to be objections. They will come up. The better you get at asking more questions, the more likely you are to find a need that you can match the solution to. So you go round here as many times as it takes. Welcome to selling. Here's the important bit. If we get to the selling stage here, we've handled their objections, we've talked about costs, we've talked about the timing of it, we've talked about other solutions in which might better fit, and they say, I like the sound of that, how do I order it? Then your job as the salesperson, step number 7, is to close. Now, there's a lot of theory about closing, lots been written about it, and sometimes people overcomplicate closing. I would recommend just keeping it simple. Don't try to close too early. If you try to close halfway through the sale and ask the customer for an order, then they're going to just see you as a pushy customer. They won't be comfortable with taking the decision forward, and you'll end up losing them. Or you'll get the order, but they won't be happy with that and won't be likely to do more business with you. So can I suggest, please, that you make sure you've gone through all these steps before you actually ask for the business. Closing isn't complicated, don't overcomplicate it. All it is these, write this down. Closing is agree the next steps. Okay? So depending what your objective was and what you've got round to selling them here, so I couldn't get that order here and now because there's too much going off. So realistically, they want to meet with me. So I would close on a meeting. When are you available? What's your diary looking like? What time of day? What day of the week? And fix them down for a meeting. So agree when you're going to meet and what's going to happen at that meeting. And then you can move on, do your prep for the meeting and go around again. Or if they're ready to buy, they want to have this solution in place quickly, then the next steps might be, I'll send you an order form out or a purchase requirement, you get back to me with the details, and we can, if you get that signed off by at the end of this week, then I know I can have that delivery ready for you at the beginning of the month. Closing, again, doesn't take very long. It's like the intro. It's just a wrap up of the conversation, agreeing what those next steps are going to be. But here's the thing about closing. It is actually more important than the intro. The intro is where you make your first impression, and it helps us to get around this part of the cycle here. But when it comes to the close, this is where you leave a lasting impression. So if you look for lasting impression there. So how do we leave a good and appropriate lasting impression on our client? Right. This is to do again with the tone of voice. It's not just the words that I say, here's what's going to happen next. But if I do that in a way which sounds, I'm confident, I'm pleased for the customer that we've found a way of working together, I want to thank them for their time, I'm looking forward to working with them on bringing this solution to them and to helping them implement this, and I'm looking forward to building an ongoing relationship with my client. This isn't just a one-off hit. I want to be able to be a regular supplier to you. I want to be able to work with you in the future. So I'm keeping my eye on the longer cycle as I close that conversation, whether it's a face-to-face meeting or a telephone conversation. It's the same aim. The aim is to create a lasting impression that the client will remember, so that when I pick up the phone next time or send them an email, they're receptive because they think, yes, I had a good conversation with you and you helped me out. You identified what my problems were and you came back with a solution. So that's basically what happens with the sales cycle. I think what I want to highlight for you in summary is that this bit here is getting to know them and understand their requirements. This bit here on this side is explaining what I can do and how that's going to happen. So if you think of Stephen Covey's famous maxim, seek first to understand before then being understood. If you get that right, get that balance right, I'm confident you can do well with your sales activity. So that's it. That's my introduction to the sales cycle. I think we're about on time. We've now got a space for a Q&A. So if you want to use the Q&A function on the left-hand side of your screen and ask any questions, I'll be very happy to take those questions now. Okay, we've got one through already. That's brilliant. Thank you for this. So the first one that's come up is, what should I do if someone is a little frosty on the sales call? Okay, we're going to get this, aren't we? We're going to get people who, they don't know who you are, they're a little bit cold, they're busy, they've got pressures and targets to meet. So I understand that people are going to sometimes be a little bit cold and just want to get you off the phone. Really, we've got to make sure, we've got to go back a step, we've got to make sure that the reason we're ringing is something that will chime with our customer. So in our research, find something that's relevant to them, something that would connect with their values, and see if you could use the right type of open question to get them talking to you. But this isn't chit chat, this isn't trying to beat about the bush, this is just talk about something that would affect your customer. The other tip I can give you is about mirroring. So if the customer happens to be fairly direct, fairly blunt, and they sound a bit cold, then don't go all fluffy and nice and gushy and talk for England. Just keep it to the point, be matter of fact, do it speaking in a pragmatic sort of way. What about this? Have you considered that? How might this help you? In the longer term, what you're trying to do here is just get enough of a connection to build on for the next conversation. So don't be too put off by somebody being reticent. That will happen from time to time. But if you've got a good enough hook in your conversation and you're mirroring the way they do business, then you'll at least stand a chance of building up that relationship a little bit more in the future. I hope that helps. We've got another one here. All right, thanks for these. Right, how long on average should I prepare for a call? Okay, there's a trade-off here, isn't there? I set myself sales targets still, and I would typically be selling a couple of days a week. I aim to be delivering training at least a couple of days a week. So I would set myself expectations of what sales activity I want to do. And in terms of preparation, if it's a customer I've never spoken to before, I might spend 10 or 15 minutes going through their website, looking on LinkedIn, finding a news feed or some reports about them. So I've got something relevant to discuss with them, and something that might be an incentive for them to sort of engage and listen to me. There's a trade-off then. You could spend 20 minutes or half an hour doing loads of prep, you pick up the phone, ring that person, and they're out of office. And it just goes to an answer phone, or the receptionist says you can't speak to them. So then you've just had half an hour doing prep, and you've got nothing to show for it. So I would say, if you aim for 10, 15 minutes on a new customer that you've not spoken to before, and you can cut that down with people that you've had a conversation, you're just then picking up on the most recent detail. So it's a trade-off between the number of calls you want to make, and I should say you want to make enough to get the activity going. It's a bit like any other practical skill, like driving a car. If you only do it once a month, you're not going to be very good at it. If you do it on a regular basis, you get a bit more confident and a bit more practical about it. If you do too many and the quality is poor, then you might make 100 calls a day and have nothing to show for it at all. So I think there's a trade-off between quantity and quality, and that's the same with your research. I think we'll find that as you're going along. I hope that helps. Oh crikey, there's another one come through now. Okay, how do I overcome the challenge of getting past the gatekeeper? Oh, right. Gatekeepers are a real challenge, I think, for anybody. If you, ideally, in your research, you want to be getting a person's name. Don't ring up, please. I mean, in training, I don't ring up people and just say, "Can I speak to whoever's in charge of training?" I will do a search first and find the name of the person who's in charge of training in that organisation at that location, and I'll try, if possible, with a bit of hunting round, you can sometimes get a direct dial number. You can go past the gatekeeper. However, there are a couple of techniques you can try. Most gatekeepers, if they're receptionists, for example, are reasonably busy people. There's a desk, there's people coming in to sign in, there's various things going on. So if you just say the person's name, so if I'm trying to get through to Steve Smith here at Raise the Bar, I could say to them, can you put me through to Steve? Oh, that's Steve Smith. And they say, who's calling? Oh, it's Jos. Jos Burton. So there's a level of informality there, and the person thinks, oh yeah, you probably know them, I'll put you through. it's worth a try, have a go. You could also try asking about to the receptionist, asking what Steve Smith's been up to lately, how busy they've been, what kind of things they work on. Sometimes by building a little bit of a rapport with the gatekeeper, although it's their job not to put you through, they'll realise that you're not just somebody chancing your arm, you actually may have something of value. And there comes a point in that relationship when you're ringing up and speaking to a receptionist where they start to remember you, and at some point they might hear your boss say, oh, you know, we've been let down with our training this month. Someone's like, oh, I've been speaking to this chap, he's been ringing up. What we're trying to do in effect is use the gatekeeper and sell to them, so that if an opportunity comes up and you can't get through, then the gatekeeper might help you. There's a couple of other shortcuts too. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this professionally, but things like if the reception number ends in 000, then it's usually a switchboard number. If you change the last number to a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or something like that, you'll go through to some other department, and you can just say, oh, I was trying to get through to Steve Smith, can you help me? I think I must have missed that. And sometimes they'll put you straight through, other times they'll put you back through to reception, you're back where you started. One other tip I could mention as well is, if you think about it, what hours do most gatekeepers work, most receptionists? Well, typically it's 9 till 5. So if you ring up out of hours, what I do is I save up some of the difficult people I've had difficult getting through to, and I'll do some late calls. I'll ring up between 6 and 7 in an evening, and you'd be surprised who picks up the phone. If you think about it, the bosses generally are working from early in the morning till late at night. They're sitting at their desk trying to get the project cleared and stuff sorted. Everybody else has gone home. The phone rings. That person picks up the phone just as an automatic condition, picks up the phone, and you're straight through to a decision maker. So then you can say, you're working late too. Yeah, so am I. How's that going? And you've got a connection straight away because they realise you work late, they are working late. It's worth a try. Have a go. Don't let the receptionists or gatekeepers be a reason for not making the call. Okay, a few tips there. How do you get on? Right, we've got some more questions coming through here, so thank you for these. We've got one here. What's the best time of day to make sales calls? Oh, right, okay. This one very much depends on the nature of your business. Typically, when I'm setting out my day for sales activity, I will follow what I learned years ago in recruitment. As business-to-business calls, the best times seem to be like core hours, somewhere between 10 and 12 and 2 and 4. You know, most people that are working will be at a desk doing work. So if you focus on core hours to do the majority of your calling, and then save a few up for outside of hours. So typically I've got a couple of clients in the public sector, and I know that quite often they'll be out and about doing what they need to do in their public service roles. So if I ring up at 8 o'clock, catch them early, they'll go in at the desk, they'll be doing their emails before they go out and do their work. I can get a great conversation with somebody first thing in the morning, because they just think, oh, you're up early, I'm here at my desk, and I'll have a conversation with you. And you're approaching it from almost a different angle. So I think you've got to do a little bit of, what I do is I keep a log of the calls that I've made in the time of day. And if I've repeatedly tried to get somebody on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock and I don't get through, then change the time, change the day. Look at the core hours that the client works, find out what's important to them if you can. Here's an example. I got through a call list that I was doing one Friday, and I've done about 40 odd calls that day. It was about 4:30 on the Friday afternoon. I've got one person left to call, and I was sitting there thinking, oh, shall I bother? I might as well leave it at 4:30, what's the point, Friday afternoon. I got straight through to this lady. She was very interested in chatting to me. She was away that weekend. There was a couple of things that had come up in that week, and I got some work out of it. So it can happen at any time. That probably isn't the best, but if you do a bit of analysis on your activity and highlight where the most effective times are, you get into a bit of a rhythm. So you shouldn't be ringing from 8 in the morning till 7 at night, but you should have focused activity on specific times and then save up the difficult ones for out of hours. Okay, so thank you for that one. We've got one here. How do you confirm the needs? Right, that's really a very important one. Thank you. What we've got to make sure we're doing here is making sure we're using good, open and probing questions to draw out the needs of the customer. So make sure you've got them telling you about the nature of the situation that they've got, or the challenge, or the opportunity, whatever it is. If you like, I don't know about you, but I make notes even when I'm on the phone. I'll write things down. If I'm face to face with a customer, I will say to them, let me just jot that down, that's important, so they can see that I'm doing that. And then for the confirming bit, when you're at step 4 here, you go back through and summarize in your words the key things they've told you that you think are relevant to the situation. So I might typically say, so what you're saying then, Mr. Customer, is this has been an issue for you because of the change and the restructuring, and that has affected performance. Have I got that right? So to confirm, you pick up on the key points they've told you, go back through them, summarize them, and put them in your own words, but then always ask at the end, have I understood that right? Have I got that right? You are checking with them, they're happy that you've got that understanding. Does that make sense? Okay, we've got another one coming through here. Would you advise a salesperson to use a script when pitching to a prospect? Right, that's a really good question. I don't know about you, but if I'm at home and somebody rings me up, which does happen from time to time in sales calls, I usually give them a few minutes just to see how they're going to go, because I know how difficult it is. If it sounds like they're reading from a script, how does that make you feel? 9 times out of 10, I just think this person's going through the motions. So can I suggest, if you're going to have anything written down, you might want to just write down your intro. I think that can be very helpful. Jot down a few of the key things you found out that you want to discuss, and maybe jot down a few of your questions. But personally, I'm not comfortable using a script, and whenever I've seen people do this, 9 times out of 10, the customer can tell you're reading something. The delivery is not the same as having a genuine conversation and being engaged with somebody. So my personal advice would be, no, don't have a script, but certainly give yourself some notes or some prompts, something that would remind you to ask this question, to follow up on this. And if you are jotting down notes as you go along as well, then you can bring those notes back up during the different parts of the conversation. So the tip would be, no, don't have a script, but yes, do have some prompts and do have some notes taken from the conversations we go along. Okay, so it looks like we're about through all of the questions. So thank you very much for your input today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to this. I hope that you found something beneficial in this session. I'd love to hear your feedback and know how you get on. So please get in touch via Raise the Bar. If you've got any information or anything else that you are wanting to find out, please get in touch with Raise the Bar. There's a telephone number coming up now, I believe, and an email address too. So thank you very much for your company today. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future.